Uncensored is a podcast where real-life coders share their stories, best practices, and talk about coding and beyond. Coders Uncensored podcast, real-life coders,
best practices,
coding and beyond. Coding and beyond. This is Coders Uncensored.
What's up? Welcome to the show, guys. What's up, coders and other people? Welcome back. This is episode 2 of Coders Uncensored. Travis, how you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's cathartic being on this again. I'm not gonna lie. This past week happened, and with our first episode, it's not Lana. Lana. If she's saying, I'm sorry. I've been practicing your name. One of the hardest names I've ever had to learn, man. And this is coming from a Puerto Rican who has to deal with longer names with a lot more letters in the alphabet. But yeah, man. Tell me, man, Travis. Tell me, how was your week? How'd the past week go?
We've been going good so far, man. I'm back in the studio working on a project. I'm on the music. On the coding end. Still been working on, building a website we're doing. We get cannabis.
Yeah.
Had a few hiccups there. So having some real life coding stuff.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us the people the hiccups we've been encountering?
Okay. So working with WordPress, and I don't like all the plugins. They have one plugin in particular that's the most inconsistent plugin I've ever seen. It's called a WP Quad. It's for the ads. Mm-hmm. And some days the plugin works, some days it doesn't work. Some days, it's the actual code that you put in. Some days it just shows up on the front end. You just see code.
Yeah.
And you don't see the actual, it doesn't do the actual function or show the ad. So I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. Well, to get a little backstory to that, for everyone listening and watching, we inherited Get Cannabis, and we're currently working on revitalizing it and bringing it back to life. And the biggest thing with that is that, we usually code everything from scratch. We usually use either the WordPress API to make React apps using, WordPress as the backend. But man, did they have some bullshit in that backend, man. It has been hell on earth. So
cleaning up, you, man. Daily cleanup.
Daily cleanups. Yeah, you're not even lying. You're not even lying a little.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
so
man.
What do you think the solution is for that particular plugin? Like, we're just going to have to clean it all the way out and get rid of that one?
Yeah, absolutely. The less plugin, better. That's really the only thing I usually do with WordPress sites. Yeah, the less plugins, the better. Same thing if you're a React developer, an Angular developer. I'm sure the less node modules you import, the better. So everything is all about having that clean, concise code right from the beginning. Having that strong foundation.
Right. No, you're right. And what about you? Any projects this week for you?
Yeah, believe it or not, I was contracted out to do some emails, and yeah, man, that took me back some years because I haven't done emails.
You doing some stuff on my end?
Yeah, man, I've been doing some emails, but I come from a time where when I was doing emails, we were back in Outlook 2016, and that was like the biggest thing ever, right? So we used to essentially do a lot of tables inside tables to make it work through all the browsers and all the email clients. Mm-hmm. Literally 10 years later, it's still the same shit. Like, it is tables inside tables. Yeah, so it is the one thing that has been frozen in time for so long, right? But I was actually introduced, what's the name of it? MJML. I was actually just introduced to it this week.
What's that?
It is a framework. You know how CSS frameworks work with Bootstrap. There's all the ones like that enhance and make it easier for you. MJML is based on emails. So like all you had to do is use their syntax, and it outputs the correct code. So instead of having
to use their syntax, you don't have to make your own tables?
Nope. I don't have to put that bullshit of tables inside tables and put all the.
Because when I was learning tables, I was like, man, this is tedious.
It's tedious. It's fucking tedious. It's the most stupidest shit ever because It's
why
like,
I can't just press the button and do it?
that is something. It's funny because a
MJL
lot
is
of
the name
people,
of it.
the what?
MJL. It's called MJL.
MJML.
MJML. Okay.
MJML. Yeah,
So you
yeah.
can use that. They come and have their own syntax, and now you got your email campaign set up, and you don't have to do the tables.
Correct. All you have to do is a line of code. It's pretty much similar to using like a div. You know what I'm saying? Like instead of using div, you just use their syntaxes, and everything is outputted to them. And I'm not getting paid to say this. They're not sponsoring this.
We're gonna use that on our projects now, right? We're gonna use that on our projects.
That's all I'm going to be fucking using for emails from now on. I am not.
Right.
I am never going to write a fucking table in my life again. That's it.
Right.
It's a wrap. It's gonna stay. I'm gonna stay using MJML, and yeah, let's see. Maybe you never know. There might be a competition out there we don't know about.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Making it easier, and that's what I'm about. I don't like doing stuff repetitive, dumb way.
Hey, but you know what? It's a rite of passage. It's a fucking rite of passage. So I'm gonna
listen.
I'm gonna put you through all that, and I'm gonna make you do all these tables.
Hey,
just so it's a rite of passage.
How many? What? Those 10 or 20 tables I did? That's it. That's it. Now we got MJML.
Yeah. And I'm sure all the veteran developers can say, "Hey, you know what? Yes, it's a rite of passage. You have to do an email because it's a make it or break it. Yeah. It could either scare away people or entice people to try dig in more. But yeah, man, that was my week.
Gotcha.
But let's talk. Let's pivot a little more to the conversation at hand. Today's topic is about tech consultants. I do want to say before we jump into the topic, if you have any question whatsoever during this live stream, please submit your questions on wherever you're watching: Facebook, YouTube Live, Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, and then we'll answer them at the very end. We have a very end we have a short Q&A segment of the show. So please leave your questions toward the end, and we'll answer them at the end. I hope that made sense. If you're listening on the podcast, just tune into the live stream whenever you can, and then ask your questions there. But this week we have someone who I just actually recently met during the pandemic. And I met him through a friend of ours, and great developer, great person, great PM, project manager. The guy really does a lot of different things. And what we're going to be talking about today is tech consultancy. Travis, do you have any idea of tech consultants? Or what a tech consultant does?
I do some consulting myself in other areas, entertainment, music, stuff like that. So I can imagine that a tech consultant would just be giving you direction in the tech world, with coding and projects like that. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the words pretty much speak for themselves. But yeah, that's exactly that. We posted a description, our definition usually of the week. I wish I had it pulled up. If you're listening, check out our Instagram page. We usually put a weekly definition of what topic we're going to be talking about there. But yeah, it's pretty much a badass motherfucker who babysits all of us and then gets their hand dirty whenever they have to go in hard. They are truly wild cards of the industry. Some people just do coding, some people just do design. Tech consultants, they do everything. But yeah, we're about to bring in Martin, but before we bring him in and before we pretty much continue the conversation and allow him to educate us on the topic, let's go to our sponsors and let's hear from them real quick.
Stay informed on health and laws regarding cannabis, from agriculture and business to entertainment and fun topics. Geek Cannabis is your online source for news and updates about cannabis, CBD, and hemp worldwide. GeekCannabis.com.
All right. Without no further ado, I think Air did a special appearance right now and barked a little. With no further ado, let's introduce. I just called him the Irish Stallion because I just figured out that he was Irish after so many conversations. Hailing from the beautiful town of Toronto, Canada, Martin.
Hey, everybody.
So,
Happy
Martin,
to be here.
What's up? Welcome. Yeah, man. Before we jump into the coder questions, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, so like you said, I'm Irish, living in Toronto. I thought you knew that. I thought everybody knew that until actually, funny story, I figured everyone knows that because of my accent, but I also realized that my accent is heavily faded over the years. I was in Melbourne, Australia 2-3 years ago, and I got off the flight, met up with some friends, went to a brewery, and then the bartender at the brewery was like, "You have an accent. Where are you from?" And I went, "Oh, I'm from Ireland." And he's like, "No, you're not. You're from North America." And I was like, "God, my accent's gone."
They called you out, man. They called you out in another country.
Yeah, I think I have my driving license and be like, "Look, I'm Irish. Like in my passport, I have an Irish passport and everything." But yeah, I've been here pushing 6 years, so my accent's heavily fading. I have Canadian friends who think I sound Irish. My Irish friends think I sound extremely Canadian. So I can't win no matter where I go.
Yeah, man, that's funny because I think I told you, like, I really literally thought that was just a dialect or, like an accent from somewhere in Canada.
no,
so
that's why I had to stop. I was like, "Wait, you're not Canadian." Now I heard. I was like, "Wait, nah." He's like, "I'm Irish." Well, all right.
But yeah. Thank you for the intro. And yeah, man, let's just jump right into it. Let's have
Awesome.
the coder question segment. Awesome. Trevor, do you want to kick it off today?
Yeah, I'll start. And Martin, we spoke a little bit offline, but I think the main thing I wanted to know is, how did you make that transition from, just coding to more so the consultant and things like that, and why did you make that decision?
Yeah, so I started my career as a software engineer. I have a comp sci degree, and I started off a pretty big enterprise right around the time where like Flash apps were disappearing and people were adopting like newer HTML5 technologies. Remember when we used to call them HTML5 technologies? So I was like, literally in the company I worked for, we were taking their Flash application and rewriting it in Angular. It was like 0.14 beta or something like that.
Oh.
And so I done that for a few years. That's where I got like a lot of my web background. And then I joined a small agency in Ireland, and then I got heavily into mobile development. And when you work in like the agency type world, you are technically like a consultant really, because like you're interfacing with the client, you're understanding their wants and their needs, like figuring out their business needs and user needs. And I've done that for like many years. Like if you look at my LinkedIn, like the majority of my my career has been in like the agency world, and because of that, I was getting exposed to the business aspect of these startups. I was like operating sales within the agencies I was working in, like helping them out and stuff like that. But then in 2017, I got like eaten up and spit out to the other side of the crypto boom that happened in 2017, crashed in December 2017. I joined this company called Cody. It stands for Currency of the Internet, which is the most pretentious name of ever. but we didn't have that name when I joined. Like we had some funding and we were creating our own cryptocurrency, and we were creating our own mobile first crypto exchange. So like we were working 7 days a week, 13 hours a day. There was 10 of us in Canada. The CTO was living in Toronto, so they built the tech team in Toronto, but the business side of the company was in Israel. So like all the business people were in Israel too, and the investors were in Israel. So we were kind of like siloed here in Toronto, and the investors came over one day to see what was going on, and it was a crazy year because we were so disconnected. Like there was like broken telephone, like from the tech side and the business side all the time. So they came over to see what was going on. During that trip, the CTO decided to quit. And because of the CTO for reasons above my pay grade, the CTO quit. And because of that, the investors were like, "Yo, okay, we're going to close the the tech side in Toronto, and we're going to move all the tech back to Israel. So like we were busting our asses off, and dude, we were working in it, like this was like pure startup vibe. We were working in the basement of the CTO's house. So like,
you were in the trap.
Like pure startup. Like didn't see sunlight for months at a time. Like living on beer and pizza, like feeling like crap, working late hours. But because they brought the development over to Israel, they took all the software with them, and then they built a team over there, and then that team got to release the software. And like we just put our heart and soul into that for 12, 13 months, and we never got to release it. Like all the software is live. Like they're like, I'm pretty sure that the mobile app they have in the market, because like I have it on my phone, I check it out every now and then, is still the same code base that I started a few years ago. But because I wasn't a part of the launch of it, like it was like almost heartbreaking. So after that, like I was jobless, and like I came to the conclusion that I love coding, and I came to the conclusion that like I love coding as a hobby. And I didn't want coding to be my 9 to 5 anymore. And then I joined another agency here in Toronto called Tribal Scale at the time, and they took a chance on me. And they created a role. It's often seen in the industry as a solutions engineer. So that's someone who like interfaces very technically with any client you have, and guides them through like the technical landscapes. It's like imagine you're a bank or an insurance company, and like you're so focused on being a bank and insurance company and the vertical that you're in. It's like someone like me will come in and be like, okay, it's like you guys are using, okay, it's the banking industry. You guys are, everything's Microsoft, and you're using C# and .NET, and it's like bringing in like tech teams from other industries to them. It's like oh, instead of like spending 6 months building a marketing website for something, like here's a tool called Webflow. It's like we can get your marketing website up and running in 2 weeks, and it's not an engineering problem anymore. It's like don't distract your engineers with non-engineering tasks. It's like now your marketing team has full control over the marketing website and the look and feel of that, and keep your engineers focused on like the core of your business and what keeps the lights on, like the more important things for your business. But then also been like, okay, you guys are like, we understand you guys have invested in this tech stack for so long. Look at these other tools that are tools and frameworks that are there. So it's like often a lot, especially my more enterprise clients, they struggle to find staff because the industry has moved on, but their tech stack hasn't moved on. You know, it's like you see all these companies, especially in Toronto, that started 10 years ago, and they're still using like Ruby on Rails. And they're like, we can't find Rails developers anywhere. And like, of course you can't, because everyone's a Node developer now. Like it's JavaScript and TypeScript everywhere. It's like you gotta update your code base, and then like educating them about how they can do that. It's like, have you ever heard the strangler pattern, where you start taking small bits. You start rebuilding small bits of your infrastructure, and you strangle out the old infrastructure slowly over a few years, and like just like educating their tech leadership on that, because like it's not that they're behind in technology, it's just that they're so focused on what they're doing 9 to 5, is that like that the outside world can like pass you by before you know it. So that's essentially how I got into the consultant part. It was very lucky. A company took a chance on me, and I've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years.
That's awesome, man. So you're telling me that if someone asks for Flash developers, you're gonna say no? What? No, we have to recode this.
Wow.
Travis, I don't know if you remember. Years ago, there was a Flash software, and that used to be what
you had to download and everybody. Yeah, you couldn't even look at videos and stuff unless you had the right Flash player. And then the guy who knew Flash, and he was supposed to be like the genius. I know Flash, right?
Try finding that shit now, man.
yeah. Steve Jobs killed that. Steve Jobs was like, Apple's no longer supporting it, and because of that, it's like you couldn't get it on your iPhone, and like maybe like the iPhone like 2 and 3. Like I remember getting those, and like half the website's not working on it because Steve Jobs wouldn't support Flash. Yeah, Yeah, he's like it's a terrible framework. Yeah, I think there's a quote where I think it was him. He said it was the herpes of the internet.
Yeah.
So
I heard that quote.
Well, you're right. For that reason, Safari didn't support Flash in any of its browser on the phone. And then once that happened, everybody was like, "Don't work on my phone. I'm not using it."
exactly. So everyone started to move away from it, and I think Adobe officially dropped it a few years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
But that was the internet for a very long time was Flash.
it was. Yeah. Yeah, it really was. I remember always seeing job applications and all they had was, hey, you need to have experience in Flash. I never learned Flash. I never had the chance to learn Flash. And I'm not going to lie, I wish I never did.
Oh,
do a comeback.
I've never actually built a Flash app, but I've dug through some Flash code, and it's not a pretty sight.
Oh, man. So I have a question about deadlines, right? I know for me, as someone who has to give deadlines to delegate and to other people, but also to myself, how do you handle deadlines and the expectations for your clients and for non-coding people?
Yeah, so like a big part of my current role is to create deadlines for products. So like imagine you both came to me and you're like, okay, we have $1 million in funding. This is our MVP idea. I will take that into the agency I work with, and then I'll work with the product leads in the agency, like our product management lead, our design lead, and our engineering lead, and we'll create a solution. And around that solution, we'll create timelines and costs. And then when that project gets handed off to the production team to be built, like we will oversee that. And literally during the production build, we will like over communicate everything to the client. It's like the client's almost annoyed that they have to like speak to us so often, but like every decision, like every feature that may get cut, every feature that we may be diving further into, it's constant over communication. And then we will always have like if it's a web app or something like that, we will always have like a dev URL so they can see the progress as it goes. But any good project with any good project management, you will see from very far back if the project's going to hit its deadline or not. And it's all about communicating that to the client and then weighing out the risks of like cutting certain features to hit like a certain deadline and like prioritizing the feature sets and then populating the backlog.
Wow. And that over communicating kind of keeps you right there where you're in place to stop them from kind of taking over. But what do you do when a client tries to take over and doesn't really let you do what you do best? Like, what do you do there?
And that happens pretty frequently. So again, we over communicate. I have a rule where a big part of my role is educating. I've met people who have the same title as me that get very frustrated when they're like, oh, the client just doesn't get it. And I'm like, well, your job is to make sure the client gets it. But my rule of thumb is to try to educate the client on whatever topic it is 3 times. And if I've done it 3 times and they're still like, no, we're doing this, I will just document the risks of them taking this over. And then I'll let them run with it. Yeah.
I fucking love that.
It's like, okay. It's like I've tried 3 times. You take it over. And then I'm like, these are the 4 risks I potentially see with you taking it over. And then if it starts to go sideways even more, I'm like, well, look, that was risk number 2.
Shit, I think I might use that. I'm definitely going to be taking that with me.
That's great.
So when you do talk to these clients and when you talk to potential people who you may be working with in the future, do you see yourself that do you usually tend to recommend a particular language more than the other?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a harder to answer question. So the agency I currently work for, we're very JavaScript and TypeScript heavy. So like our sweet spot is like Node backends, React front ends. The majority of our work is hosted on AWS. We're actually a AWS Platinum partner, so AWS passes work onto us too. Nice. So that's our sweet spot, and then like Postgres databases. That's what our engineering sweet spot is. But when we're talking to clients, first of all, we look at the overall problem and like, does React solve that problem? Maybe it's not the best for their business, because it'll be silly of me to like recommend React when they have 20 Angular developers there. So it's like we look at their current staff, we look at what their other infrastructure is built on, we look at the hiring capabilities of a certain tech stack, and then we look at what we have on our bench as well. Because like if the client needs the project to start on Monday, I'd be like, okay, well, we only have React developers. If you want our Angular developers, it can't start for another 3 months, which is often the case. So it's a little hard. If I was to go with what my agency wants, it's like Node, React. But then, like as I said, it's like what's best for the solution, what's best for the client, how and the way we like to work too. And we don't like maintain your project, we build your project and we pass it along to you. So then the hiring capabilities as well, it's like we don't want to pass you like if I built them Ruby on Rails app, and then I'm like, okay, now here you go, and then you gotta hire a team, and then they're like, yo, we can't find any Rails developers in Toronto, and I'm like, yeah, I know, because Shopify hires them all, so you gotta pay the big bucks for those guys. So it's a combination of teams.
Wow, no, that's a great answer on that. I know it's a difficult question to answer. I have a somewhat maybe an easier one. What would you tell your younger self, as far as advice getting into this tech world? You told me you started with coding and now you're on to more of the client interfacing, but what would you tell your younger self as advice?
That you're never pigeonholed. When I was a software engineer, it's like when I started off, I building things in the beta version of Angular. I thought I was, like in that company, I thought I was pigeonholed into that type of work. And then I moved on to be a mobile developer. And especially when I moved to Canada, the recruiters looked at my resume and they pigeonholed me as a mobile developer, even though I had all this other experience. And when I was younger, I didn't really have the confidence to really speak up. But then once I was like putting my hand up and like, hey, yes, I do have native mobile experience, but like I've also worked sales and I've done PM work, I've done design work. Like once I got a little bit more confident talking to like people higher up in companies than me, so many more opportunities opened up. And then eventually you get to the spot where like I used to be like, oh, I can't talk to my CTO. My CTO is the smartest person in the world. And it's like, he's just a person just like you. Like right. he just has more experience than you. It's like he or she was where you are now at one stage. And like earlier on in my career, the biggest blocker I had was just not being confident enough to show my capabilities. I was like, okay, I better just like go to this corner and code in Swift for 7 days a week. But once I started to more openly like push or fight for more opportunities within companies, they came very quick.
Gotcha. So not being pigeonholed, that's great advice. Now I try to use that even when I'm working with Angel. Like, I don't know something, I don't know, but I'll learn today. Let's go. That's how I kind of roll with it. So that's great. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and that's how you grow as a person too.
That's true.
It's like just branch out and do new things, and like there's definitely been things in work where I've put my hand up. I'm like, I can do this. And then like I start doing it. I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I can do this. And then it leads to a few late nights, and maybe you have to work the weekend, but like you get it done, and then you get that experience on your belt. Yeah, but then you get the experience under your belt, and now you're known as the guy who can do all these things in your company.
Right. Yeah, that's super right. So that leads in perfectly to our next segment, which I think we're going to learn a lot about you. So in this part, we're going to ask you a series of questions, right? You don't know anything about these questions, and it's just pretty simple. It's this or that. We're going to present you two options, and you're going to tell me which one is better. And let's give us an explanation. Tell us more about why you choose one question or the other, right? So I'll have Travis start now. But before that, let's throw that on the screen. All right.
So we can go with Jira or Trello.
Oh man, I don't like either of them. But
shit.
yeah, I'm going to say Jira. I have the most experience in it, but like for the way people like use these tools, like I feel like they're like over convoluted. Like they can do so much, and I feel that the average team or the average person needs to use like 5% of their features. I have the same issue with Salesforce. It's my company uses Salesforce. It's hundreds of dollars a month per user on it, and we use like 2% of the functionality. I've been recently using Monday.com, and I just love the simplicity of it. Maybe one day I will get stuck that like I'm like, oh, I can't believe I can't do this, but like I just find that I get lost in Jira and Trello because they can do so much.
It's a glorified planner. It's like a glorified planner when you really think about it. It's like, so I saw the Monday.com. You recommend it? I saw it. I didn't think it was.
I like the simplicity of it. Like I just want to be able to put up tickets and see the progress through a Kanban board or something like that. And like I don't use all the other stuff that's like built into it. But the great thing about like Jira in particular, it's like you can if you create a ticket, then you put the ticket number into your Git. If you branch off and put it into your Git feature name, they're connected. That's awesome. That doesn't exist on Monday.com, and that's so awesome. Like especially when you're just like, oh, I want to see the progress of this, and then you can see the PR on GitHub or whatever. That's cool. But I find I don't use the majority of the features that they offer, and I just get confused sometimes. Expect Jira updated their UI a few years ago, and I was lost for months. I didn't know how to do anything.
Yeah, no, I have to say I have seen a shitload of ads of Monday.com everywhere. Back when I used to live in New York, that's it. The subways was just that Monday.com. So I might have to give it a shot. Now,
a YouTube ad got me. I kept seeing YouTube ads and
for
6 months. Then I eventually just clicked on it, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually very simplistic. I like this."
You see all the money they dumped in marketing. It worked.
It
worked. It absolutely worked. All right. So the next question I have for you is a little bit more fun, right? Techno versus dubstep.
Oh. That's hard. So I grew up listening to a lot of techno, and then like around the time I met Eddie, which is our mutual friend, like he got me into like dubstep, and our mutual friend Mavis was super into it. So I ended up going to a lot of dubstep shows and really enjoying them. Like I know that's like. Do I prefer vanilla or chocolate ice cream? I enjoy I enjoy them both. It just depends on my mood.
And we never thought that would be such a difficult question for you.
I thought it was going to be an easy question too.
He's like, man.
Oh man, my music taste is so open. I kind of listen to everything, and it really depends on my mood. Like, man, after this, I could listen to Taylor Swift. Tomorrow morning, I'll wake up listening to Slipknot. You never know.
Yeah. I definitely, even in the time I was in Ireland, I told you about Temple Bar. I was doing songs, my Spanish songs, rap songs. People were liking everything. People from Ireland, so I know that there's like a wide range of things you would like and stuff. But you got to be able to choose between dubstep and techno.
Awesome. All right.
All right. Cool. So the next one, AWS versus Google Cloud.
I mean, after he literally just said they're a partner of AWS, I think this is going to be way easier than expected.
Yeah.
So I feel AWS is a much more mature service. There's a lot more like applications on top of it. It can do a lot more, but their interface fucking sucks. It's so confusing. It's hard to use. Google's interface is really intuitive and clean, but they don't offer as many services. So again, it depends on what we're building. It's like if you're doing a bunch of like AI work and stuff like that, like AWS has a bunch of things out of the box and Google does too, but it's just not as advanced. But if I was to build a personal project, I would use Google because the interface is so intuitive. Whenever I'm like diving deep into AWS, I get like you click on the link and that pushes you to another dashboard you've never seen before. And it's super confusing. So like AWS offers more, but the learning curve is so much higher. The learning curve for Google is so much lower, but like you are limited to what you can do. But realistically, you're only limited to what you can do if you're building like a pretty intensive application. A lot of MVPs even aren't very intensive. It depends on what you're doing with your application. But all personal projects would probably be Google for me.
Nice.
Right,
nice.
cool. Because you don't want to do rocket science when you're trying to get something to the cloud, right?
Yeah, I just want an app that like lets users log in and look at pictures of memes or something like that. Who knows?
You see, these are all great poll questions that I feel like we need to re-ask at least the audience later, like at another time, because I would love to see how many coders actually prefer AWS over Google Cloud. Because all the points you brought up, super fucking valid. Because it's just overwhelming. Stepping into like the back end of AWS is so overwhelming. But
like genuine. So like we are partners with AWS, but they so companies approach AWS and they're like, okay, like a big enterprise, like we need this built. AWS will handle the back end work, but like Amazon know that because they know that the back end work is their strength, and then they outsource the front end work to agencies like the agency I work for. So you get on their partner list, and then AWS call you up and they're like, yeah, we have a project. Do you want to do it? Because they know that their weakness is user experience, and that shows in all their like admin tools.
Nice. So let's jump to the next question, which I think, I don't know, it may be super fucking hard. Let's see. Vancouver versus Montreal.
Vancouver for sure.
No,
I think like Montreal's a lot of fun. Very European. Like it reminds me of a lot of European cities.
Yeah.
But like honestly, I think Vancouver is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. If I had landed in Vancouver before I landed in Toronto, I'd be living in Vancouver right now. But I landed in Toronto and I like started a life here, and I didn't visit Vancouver for like 2 years later. Like I will probably be living in Vancouver in the next 3 to 5 years, dude. Like it's like the main city is like an island, and it's just surrounded by mountains. It's like mountains all on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other. It's so beautiful.
Oh man. Yeah. I've been dying to. I've been dying to. Mandy, my wife, she has I feel like a few times a year she tells me we need to visit Vancouver. And hopefully after COVID is over, we'll see if it's ever over. But
you gotta go, you gotta visit. Visit.
And you're in Vancouver, and then you're a 2-hour drive from Whistler, and Whistler like is so beautiful. It's like, and the village, like the village town of Whistler is like a party town as well. So it's like it's like snowboard all day, and then it's like a gigantic party every night. Like the village probably, I don't know numbers, there's probably like 5,000 to 10,000 people there at any given time, and it's a party. Like it's like $5 beers, $3 shots, just having a good time.
You, my friend, I need to take you to Puerto Rico.
Oh,
if you want cheap beers, if you want cheap beers and have a great time, I definitely have to take you there.
All right, cool. So I guess we're gonna get to the next one. Oh, React versus Angular.
And this is almost like bringing around what you were talking about earlier today too.
Yeah, for me personally, React. I just like I just really enjoy React. I haven't really built apps in Angular since like the early days, and then so the majority of my experience was in the first version of Angular, and then Angular 2 came out, and like you couldn't port your stuff from Angular 1 to Angular 2. So I was like, because like Google released the first version, and the second version was a collaboration between Microsoft and Google. So it's like your Angular 1 app, then you have to rewrite it from scratch for Angular 2. And then their version and just got super weird. And then like I think they're on like Angular 9, but there was no like 6, 7, or 8 or something like that. They skipped a bunch of numbers. But like as a like if I put my coder hat on, it's like if I started coding in the very first version of React, I could carry that code base all the way till now. Like it's still applied. They just deprecate teens slowly. And the only thing that I don't like about modern web development though is Redux. I think Redux is a pain in the ass. No, I think it adds so much bloat to a project. Like I understand it, but think it adds so much bloat to the product. Like you have to obfuscate that a little bit and like made it more of a feature of the framework rather than something that works with the framework. But yeah, I just think Redux is I try to avoid using it as much as possible just because I find it a pain. Like when React hooks came out, like I'm like, well, I can kind of hack my way through routines without using Redux now.
Yeah. For me, at least, when I learned Redux, it was definitely a learning curve. But once I got there, I was like, oh, that's nice. I could live without it. I could live without it. But yeah, I'm with you 100% on the React hooks. Once you master the React hooks part, it is fucking fantastic. It really takes React to a whole new level. And I personally never touched an Angular project, but I've heard those horror stories where like 1, 2, 3, and then jumps to 7, and then goes to another. It was like an iPhone version, like it changes. Like that. But I'm with you 100% on that, man. Now, this was a question just because I kind of wanted to ask a very Canadian question. So if this is offensive, please tell me. Bieber versus Drake.
Well, I live in Toronto, so it has to be Drake.
All right.
Actually, I have a very funny story about Drake. For whatever reason,
you tell.
So for whatever reason, me and my ex were walking through Toronto, and we were going to at the Ritz-Carlton in Toronto for something, and we were walking by a branding agency, and she passed comments. She was like, "Oh, that branding agency done all the branding for Drake," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then we just kind of started making jokes about Drake, and literally as I made a joke about Drake, we arrived at the Ritz-Carlton, and I looked up, and Drake was 2 or 3 feet away from me, and he was just, I swear to God, and he just stared at me, and I was like, and then we walked in, and I grabbed my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, that was Drake, and she's like, no, it wasn't, and she walked back outside, and she just stood there like this, staring at him, and then Drake's security guard pushed her away.
So you out there talking bad about him, he just rolled up on you.
I'm just shit talking him, and all of a sudden he's like 2 feet away from me. I'm like, oh God, no.
Oh man,
dude, he's tall. Like I googled him after like I'm 6 foot, and I was looking up at him. And Google told me he was like 5'10" or something after I looked him up. That guy is like 6'2", 6'3". I was like, oh, straight. Maybe it was the shoes he was wearing, but Google says he's shorter than he is. But I looked up, and I'm 6 foot.
The odds, absolute odds of that happening.
Yeah. The fact that branding agency was there, and the fact that you were talking about him, and he's right there in your face.
Yeah, it happened about 4 years ago.
You gotta watch your mouth out there in Toronto, man.
Oh, you do. You never know who you're gonna bump into.
Do you think he heard you talking?
I don't know. I just looked up, and he was staring at me. So maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But yeah, I just panicked and walked inside.
So if Drake ever writes a song about like an Irish guy he ran into in Canada,
it's me.
We'll know.
We'll know it was you, Mark.
But like he's like a big. You can't go anywhere without like hearing about him or anything like that. And then before COVID, he'd play random shows across Toronto. He would places like the Velvet Underground that like fit like 200 people. There'd be articles the next day that Drake just showed up and done a show in front of 200 people and stuff like that.
Wow. That is crazy. Cool. But yeah, man, let's then, with that, thank you, Drake, for doing a feature on our on our stream. Let's switch over to the next segment, which we like to call Explain the Source Code. So with Explain the Source Code, what we did was we pulled 3 pictures from your social channels, whether it be Instagram. And to be honest, I think Instagram is the only one I checked because I haven't followed you on anywhere else. So we're going to ask the simple question behind each story, behind each image, which is, what's the backstory? Explain the source code. So I'm going to pull up the first one here, and I'm going to explain it for the people who do listen to the podcast after. The very first one, we see Martin very happy, cheesing it up right now, very ecstatic with 2 of the biggest burgers I feel like I've seen. The size. I mean, it's really hard to compare the size, but imagine 2 times the size of like a normal hand, right? And just a ton of fries, on there. So our question for you, Martin, is please explain the source code on that.
Yeah, so that was the very first time I was ever in In-N-Out Burger. I was in Phoenix, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
But I arrived at the airport. I was in the Toronto airport, and this was around the time I was getting my residency, and I had to get a new passport. And because I'm not a Canadian citizen, and because I'm from Europe, I need to get a special visa to travel to the US.
Mm-hmm.
And that visa gets attached to your passport, and it lasts for like 5 years. And every 5 years, you have to like redo it. It's like for $50 or something like that. And you do it every 5 years. And I totally forgot about that. It was attached to my old passport. I show up to the airport with my new passport. And because I didn't have the right visa to enter the States, I missed my flight. And because I was trying to board a flight without a certain visa, they thought that was suspicious. And they put me in the back room in an airport for 5 hours and questioned me without any food or anything like that. And eventually got out of there. I got on a flight. I arrived in Arizona. I haven't eaten in like 24 hours. And I saw In-N-Out Burger. I've never been there before. And I'm the type of guy that when I'm like really hungry, I will order everything and I'll take like I'll take like 5 bites. I'm like, no, this is too much food.
Okay. Now what's the verdict though? Did you actually enjoy that?
Oh man, I love that. I got them animal style. I've never had it before. And I thought it was great. Like I got, and the drink beside me is a chocolate milkshake as well. I felt great for an hour. I felt great for an hour. I felt like dog shit for the rest of the day.
Now, the fact that you hadn't eaten in 24 hours, don't you think that made it taste a little bit better?
Oh, I'm sure it did. Like I'll have to go back and like taste test again.
For me, I believe that In-N-Out is the most overrated burger in the history of man.
Damn, man.
I've had In-N-Out several times, and it's just like I always go back just thinking maybe I got the wrong one. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's like it's just overrated. I'm glad they helped you in your time of need, but it's overrated.
I'll go back and I'll go back like Fed and I'll text you my review.
You have to go to the very same one.
One of the best sandwiches and burgers I've had was actually a Temple Bar in Ireland.
Oh yeah, where did you go?
Right over by Isaac's. If you're in Temple Bar and you go by Isaac's, okay, down the street from there, they have called a chutney type sandwich.
Okay.
They stay with bangers and smash or whatever.
Yeah.
What it's called? Yeah. I remember that. And now that's a good burger.
Yeah. Some good food in Ireland, all right.
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry now. Now let's go on to the second image. Now this image I think is one of my favorites. So in this picture here, we see his dog. What's your pup's name?
Her name is Waffles.
Her name is Waffles. So we just actually finished binging Modern Family, and this is the type of dog that Jay has. The Stella. His dog's name is Stella, and the fact that Waffles, she's not even like the most impacting thing of the image. It's the freaking scenery that we see in the background. It is the pristine, bluest water you probably will see in your entire life, with the most gorgeous mountains. So please explain that source code, man, because I am so curious.
Yeah, and there's no filter on that photo either. That's literally the color of the water.
Wow. I'm just gonna bring it back up here.
Yes. So that's Lake Louise in Calgary. So last summer when the whole world was locked down, I drove across the country. I drove across the country to Calgary, to Alberta to see my uncle. And I wanted to take my dog with me. So instead of taking the 5-hour flight, I drove 3 days to Alberta. And then once we got into that area, actually before I moved to Canada, I Googled like awesome things to see in Canada, and it was like pictures like that. It was like Lake Louise and stuff like that. And then I arrived in Toronto and I realized that everything that like the tourists go to see in Canada is on the west coast, and I was 3,000 kilometers away. So yeah, that's Lake Louise. I brought Waffles in I rented a Jeep and we drove all the way across the country, and that was the picture I took of her beside the lake.
Oh, that's cool.
Speechless. I'm speechless.
Great picture. Great picture.
Now the third picture I'm gonna throw up. It's actually pretty funny. I chuckled. I'm not gonna lie. I chuckled because I'm like, wait a minute, is he in this picture? But yeah, he's he's dead center. Like we see him in the center. This is
Yeah,
I
that's
was
me.
back in high school. You have shoulder length hair, and you're hanging out with your crew back in the day. So yeah, tell us about that picture.
Yeah, I'm about 16 years old in that photograph. When I was a teenager, I thought I was going to be a rock star. I grew up playing in bands, like cover bands, playing in bars and stuff like that. Thought it was super cool. Like hair, that hair eventually went halfway down my back.
What?
I ended up cutting it. I was walking through the town I'm from in Ireland, and I was walking down the street, and then I turned around, and there was a group of girls, and one of them went, "Oh, it's a guy." So I ended up cutting my hair because of that. But yeah, when I was 16 to 17 years old, I thought I was going to be a rock star.
Okay,
but now I'm a tech consultant, so like, I guess I won.
And Martin, there's a rumor going around that you used to listen to Nickelback during that time. Is that true?
Was that where the hair was inspired?
Well, honestly, like heavily inspired by Metallica, but unfortunately enough, Nickelback was on my iPod as well.
Listen, I mean, we could all talk shit about Nickelback, but we all know their songs by heart. Like that shit, like one of their songs on the radio, we will sing that shit.
It's true. Nickelback perfected the rock pop radio formula, and that's why we all hate them as well.
Yeah, rock pop fusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for explaining all that. Thank you so much for everything. But before we start wrapping up, we're going towards the end of the show. We're gonna jump on some Q&A questions that people have submitted throughout the show. So let's jump on that. So believe it or not, it's not questions that I see. It's all comments and answers about a few things. We have that Drake story. We have waffles. We have fuck those emails. and then we have some pretty much repeating of a few of those. But we do have one that actually I like. Let's bring it up here. So question says to the people listening, what's up, Martin? Questions for all the coders on this live. Do you struggle to unplug from the matrix? And what is your favorite thing to do while you're not coding on a computer? So it's a two-parter question. So do you struggle to unplug from while you're coding?
Yeah, I do. Actually, since COVID happened, I struggled to do that more. Like before COVID, it's like 5 o'clock would hit, and then I'm like, oh, well, there's places for, like, especially in Toronto, because Toronto's been locked down. Mm-hmm. Like 5 o'clock would hit, and I'd be getting texts from friends that they're like on a patio or in a bar. So I'll be, yeah, I'm gonna meet up with you now. But it's like I have found over the last year that I'm working later, and it's not because my companies want me to work later. It's because I just kind of forget what time it is, and there's nothing else for me to do. So I definitely do struggle. Also, like if you're coding and like you're in the flow, it like time passes so quickly. It's like you're getting a lot of good shit done, and you're zoned in. Before you know it, it's like 5 or 6 hours have passed. And you're well, I haven't eaten food. So yeah, I do sometimes struggle. Definitely more because of COVID. What do I like to do outside of that? I play guitar a lot. There's 5 guitars in this room. I record my own music. I have a SoundCloud, a little drop for me right there. And then I used to snowboard and stuff, but all the snowboarding hills and everything in Canada have been closed because of COVID. I skateboard, and then basically just chill out with friends. Music is like a pretty solo thing for me. Like I'll record it here on my computer and stuff like that, and just take the ideas from my head and like just like programming as well. It's kind of hard to step away from when you're in the zone. But yeah, so hard to step away from the computer sometimes. But then big into music, and just like after work, I'm just usually just chilling out with some friends. Nothing too crazy.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to have guitars that you actually play, because I feel like I have 3 guitars here. That's all for show. But ukulele, I got a guitar and all that. You know, wife wanted to learn. I'm like, all right, let's get them, and they're just there to hang out. They're there for anybody who wants to come over to our house and just like kind of like strum a few strings.
Yeah.
But yeah, aside from that, again, more comments coming in. This one's actually pretty funny, and I don't know what it means, so I'm just gonna throw it up here. Nickelback with Ed Sheeran, KK. Oh, your picture.
Hey, and big shout out, man, Lucas over, and he's in Brazil, man.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, shout out to Lucas, man. Get experience.
Nickelback with Ed Sheeran. It's really amazing. Wow.
Obrigado.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Oh.
But
That's
yeah,
very
no,
funny.
So before we wrap up the show, I want to thank everyone for watching live. I want to thank everyone for to everyone who's listening on the podcast after the show finishes airing, and of course, thanks to our sponsor that we're currently working with, Good Cannabis. Martin, is there anything you want to plug in? You said music, any YouTube videos, companies. Throw it out now. Here's your chance.
Yeah, anyone that's listening, Angel, me and Angel's friend, we're creating a company called the Guac Company. To think of ritual, but for the weed industry. Teens are going to go live soon. I'm sure I can get Angel to plug it in a few months. Maybe the Guac Company could be the sponsor of the of this podcast. But yeah, if you want to reach out to me and ask me any more questions, everyone hit me up on LinkedIn. My full name is Martin Jeffers. Just connect with me and we can DM.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martin, for being here. It was a fucking blast. I was not expecting the Drake. I was not expecting waffles. I was not expecting a lot of things. Thank you so much for being here. With that, I'm going to sign out myself. Thank you for listening. Travis, any last words?
Oh, appreciate you coming in, letting us know that there are all these different options in this world of coding, especially for new coders like me. We don't have to stay in one lane. We can do different things. So I appreciate that.
So with that being said, thank you for all the coders and all the other people out there in the world.